Anyway, I'm glad you're all here. Let me say hello to everybody in the chat room. This is a live show open to the public, and we have Clara from Ireland in here. Caitlin's here. Clarissa's here. Liz is here. UK Watch is here. Happy birthday. Taylor's here. So we have a lot of people from Patreon who are here to watch the show. Spike is here. Jennifer. Oh, a whole bunch of you guys. I do recognize the names of Carla, Amanda, Planet Steel. I think I said hello to everybody else. Barbara, maybe not. Firefly. Yeah. Okay, Nancy's here. All right, I'm going to stop here just because I'm going to lose track of everybody and who is here. But if you would like to be at my regular shows, my regular lives are twice a week. I have the case show on the weekend, and I have a hangout during the week. And if you join Patreon, the link below, it's $5 a month. You can come to the 8 lives, and that supports this educational channel. This is a rare live, open to the public. And I did this because of the show I did last night, the video I put out. Well, maybe it wasn't last night. When did I put the video out? Friday night? Friday night. Yeah, I put the video out on Lucy Letby and the documentary that had been done. And I've gotten a lot of comments, some good, but a whole bunch of people who are very angry with me and say, you know how to do your research before you do a show. And so on that note, I decided I would like to do this one on Sarah Jane Parkinson because she exhibits a condition called Munchausen's, and that is it is actually not what the people think. It's some kind of I don't know, syndrome. It's not. It's a behavior of psychopathy. And Lucy Letby, when the people who think she's guilty think she also exhibits Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which is a psychopath who, instead of doing things to herself to gain attention, hurts or kills children to gain attention, whether they be her own children or children in a nursing facility, or not even children. It can be the elderly in a nursing home. It can be other people, but it's sort of like a female serial killer. But they are very different from male serial killers for the most part. And they go under the radar a lot, as do Munchausen's in general. So when women lie and manipulate and do these things for the purposes of gaining attention, control, and power, we often dismiss those behaviors and go, oh, it's just she's this way, or she's just that way. She's really a nice girl. she's suffering some emotional strain, or she's got postpartum depression, whatever it is. We tend to excuse women way more than we excuse men who do these things. And so that's why I wanted to do this show. And so if you don't want to join Patreon, that's perfectly fine. Please do subscribe to the channel. All of my shows do go public once the live is done. And I say once in a great while, I have a live for the public. But for the most part, I have just patrons from Patreon at the live shows, so that, generally speaking, it stays nice and calm and we're a good community. So let's get on with it now. And hopefully I have no more screens going black on me. It's very annoying when that happens. So anyway, so getting into this case and how I got to this case. Tell you, so many more people coming in. Okay. Thank you for saying that, Taylor. Peter Hyatt always said that the fabricators of reality are the most dangerous deceivers. Peter Hyatt and I have gone back a long way together, and sadly, Peter is no longer with us. He passed away. I can't remember how many months it's been, but it feels like forever now because I miss him. And he was brilliant at statement analysis, and it's really nice that we tended to agree on almost everything, which was nice. He does a different style of statement analysis than I do. I do what I call red flag statement analysis, which I just point out the things that are very, very prominent to me. As I don't go into all the details of the wording and everything like he does. He goes into depth. I do more just here's the things that really stand out. But we tend to agree on cases as to who the perpetrators are and what the motives of the perpetrators are. And so it was always, I always respected him. So sometimes when I did a video and gave my opinion before I ever heard his, and then he came out and did a video, there were occasions I'm like, let's see what Peter says, and then if he came up with similar things to me, I'm like, oh, whew, because I do truly respect his work, and I just wish he'd be here. Yeah, that's a shame that he is no longer with us. So, good people sometimes, as they say, leave too soon. And he did that. But, all right. So what happened? I want to bring this up before I go into all the details. So I did the show I did on Lucy Leppy was this one, and I've done other stuff on Lucy Leppy before, but there was a documentary that came out from her defense team, and had the panel of these medical experts and the most renowned in the world, and they all said there were no murders, and therefore Lucy Leppy couldn't be a murderer because there were no murders, which is a reasonable thing to say if there were no murders. But as I examined the documentary, I had things just stood out to me. Those red flags that I talk about, that the way it was being presented, I didn't think was entirely honest or truthful or factual, or not just an opinion, and not somebody's opinion doesn't mean it's accurate. And it's all coming from the defense. So you have to always take things with a grain of salt until you can examine everything, until you can get other experts in to examine it, which is what usually is done in a court of law. But the media and defense teams they're in collusion to push to the public their agenda of innocence. And they bring in all these people to then support that outside of a court of law. So while the prosecution can only do this in a court of law for the most part, the defense is out there day after day after day for years, pounding this into the brains of the public that this person is innocent. So when I saw the documentary, I said, this is a defense documentary, and I don't buy the Dr. Lee and the panel saying, Dr. Lee, he was speaking for the panel. Sometimes I wonder how much the panel said that wasn't Dr. Lee promoted. But Dr. Lee is like, okay, there were no murders, so therefore she's innocent. And so I went through the documentary, giving commentary, and have a lot of people say, you should do more research on the case. You know nothing about this case. You're an idiot. And so I'm like, okay, I do think I know about this case. Maybe you don't like my style of presentation. Maybe you missed the point that I wasn't talking about whether she was innocent or guilty, but talking about how things are done these days outside of the courtroom with the defense teams. Maybe I missed that point. But hey, okay, let me see if I'm completely wrong on everything. So I just read this book. I spent today reading this book, Unmasking Lucy Leppy, which I highly recommend people read who are interested in this case. This is one of the most meticulously documented books I have read in a really long time. And they were very unbiased in it. They didn't, and the end of it, they didn't make any absolute conclusions whether she was innocent or guilty. But I thought, wow, they did a tremendous amount of work and went into detail on all the medical stuff. And I read it, I'm like, well, as far as I can see, I was pretty much right about what I said. So I'm going to do another video. I'm going to bring the information from the book out to people who haven't read the book and who do seem to misunderstand evidence and behaviors. And so I just wanted to point that out. And so I'm going to get to the behavioral issue of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And she is like a poster girl for Munchausen's and some of the damage it can do when people simply believe what she says, what that quote victim says. Well, that's very nice, Linda. But it's YouTube, and I know it's YouTube. And when you get to very volatile cases or volatile people about cases, anybody and their brother and sister can put stuff on, make a comment, unless you block all comments, which I don't. And so instead of coming forward and saying, as you might say, it's like, well, I disagree with you, Pat, because of blah, blah, blah. I think, you said this was very interesting. There's respectful ways of disagreeing, but then there's other ways of just calling me names and telling me I'm an idiot. And I did obvious. And you didn't do research is always an interesting point to me. When people disagree with my analysis, they say I didn't do my research, which I just find interesting. That's one of the go-tos, and it's a good one to go to because you're basically saying they're trying to insinuate that since I didn't bother to learn any of the facts of the case, I cannot be believed. So it's one of those very useful arguments. It's Not true, but it's a very good argument. So, but it happens all the time. So that's just the way it is. So, um, oh, 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 Lex, that is true. I forgot what he said too, and I was going to actually bring it up because Dr. Grande did do something on her, and what was the funny statement he made? Somebody tell me what it was. I was hysterical. I laughed because he's a funny guy and he's got a great dry sense of humor. But I forgot what he said that made me laugh now. I'm annoyed by that. But go watch Dr. Grande's thing. And he does these short ones. So, and he just has a fun way of doing these things. So anyway, let me get out of the sweater now. Okay, so this case, let me just do the basics on this case because then I'm going to go into other cases that have similarities to it and with why the women were believed, why they weren't believed, and why women are believed more than men are believed. And that's a very interesting issue as far as women. There is more sympathy toward women than toward men. And then the only time men really get massive sympathy as far as is when the Innocence Project gets involved and again the media, and they say the government railroaded somebody, massive corruption. So even making a murder with Stephen Avery, Stephen Avery, who not only was a guy, but he was a completely unlikable human being, like a creepy dude. I'm like, the fact that so many people suddenly said, "Oh my God, poor Stephen Avery," and I'm like, what? I mean, of all the people you want to think is a innocent fellow, the evidence was overwhelming, and he's a creepy dude regardless, like throwing cats into fires and stuff. I mean, the guy's not a nice guy. It's like, how did they convince you to like this guy and to want him to be freed? And I think it was because Netflix did a really good defense-driven documentary with great music and all that stuff. And it helps people get emotions. The emotions start bubbling. And then they go with emotions and not logic. They go with their feelings. And a lot of people are very, they get very incensed. I mean, horribly angry. Like when I happen to think Lucy Lippy is, I'm not saying it wasn't, I'm not going to go into whether unsafe conviction or not. That was for the jury to decide. And if they get an appeal and she gets the appeal and she goes back to court or another trial, then they can hash it out there. But just because I'm not willing to jump on the bandwagon that says she's been proven innocent, which I do not believe she has been, the hatred toward me, the anger, the fury. And I'm like, you're not even friends with Lucy Lippy. She's not your daughter. She's not your friend. You don't know her. You've never been around her. Why are you so incensed? Now, I can understand you may feel differently than me. You may think, oh, I've examined this and I think she's innocent. Okay. But the fact is, if somebody tells me they think Lucy Lippy is innocent, I'm not going to go off the deep end and go, you horrible person. How could you let that murdering child killer out there to kill more babies? Calm down, everybody. Calm down. Let's look at some of these cases intellectually, logically, and not emotionally. Because when we do all the emotional stuff, and that's what the defense teams especially play on along with the media, on people's emotions. That's why the dramatic music is there and everything, because it gets people stirred up. It really does. It really works. It's not stupid. I mean, the defense team's pretty brilliant when you come down to it. So anyway, hi, Sarah. I'm glad you're here. We're given a link. Well, yes, I'm actually here. The Karen Reed case was another case that was just so much emotion, so much crazy emotions. And I understand that people are concerned about corruption in the government and corruption in police cases. I mean, I have two very cases I worked at, well, 3, maybe more, 4. Okay. There are cases where I think there was prosecutorial misconduct. And it affected me personally in the sense that I worked the case. And in working the case, I was working pro bono. All the hours I worked pro bono. And then I saw misconduct. And then the media was willing to eat up whatever was said and put it out there. And I'm sitting here going, but I know better. I know the truth. But if I lost my mind over every one of these cases, as much as I'm unhappy about it, I know it goes on. I want to improve the system. Certainly want to speak out, but let's try to, have a little less insanity business going on. Okay, so let's go to her before you all go, why aren't you talking about it? All right. The fascinating thing about this case is the simple fact that the police simply believed her. Now, mind you, this was her boyfriend. They were going to get married. Her fiance going to get married. And she was cheating on him with one of the policemen. So there is that. But the other police fell for it too. And interestingly, when there's claims of rape, the Me Too movement, which has been a problem in my opinion, not that there aren't people who have been raped and would like to say, yeah, me too, I went through that miserable, horrible experience, and what evidence wasn't there to go after the guy, or I couldn't prove it, or whatever. It's a horrible thing. Sometimes it's just the way it is. It's just, the police can only arrest people with evidence, in theory. In theory, although this case proves otherwise. And the prosecutor theoretically doesn't want to prosecute a case with not proper evidence either. Although, again, there are those times when they do. But there is usually a sympathy that people feel when a person sits in front of them crying and saying, I've been raped. Especially for guys, it's like they know that like supposedly like the worst thing that can happen to a woman. And, they're like, man, they may come off as tough guys and all that stuff, but when they see a woman crying before them saying she's been raped, it tends to make them very sympathetic toward her, because I think it could be my girlfriend, my wife, my daughter, my mom, whatever. And along with many other people, they have trouble believing somebody would come in and say they were raped when they weren't, because supposedly being raped is some kind of humiliating thing to the victim, which has carried on for like thousands of years, as if the victim, if they were truly raped, somehow is, I don't know, is, what's the word for it? No longer, I'm trying to think of the old terminology, if you could think of it. Think of it, what am I talking about? Somehow it's besmirched your character. Somehow you're not clean anymore because somebody did something to you. But it's a body. You're the person that's in the body, and they've harmed your body. But you are, as a human being, it's not you that they raped. They raped your body, but unfortunately your body was attached to you. So therefore, yeah, pristine's a good word for it. Pristine, yeah. It's this thing where somehow you're a less or dirty person because you were raped. This is still going on, and it's unfortunately it's also in the minds of the women who get raped and the men who get raped, because of men who are raped too, and they feel dirty. That's why, unfortunately, some people, after have been sexually assaulted, the first thing they do is run to the shower, and all they want to do is stand in the shower and get clean. And then all the DNA goes away, which sucks, But the feeling is this grimy, creepy creature has infected me with himself and entered my body. And it is grotesque. So I understand the victim's point of view on that, but there's also a societal point of view in a weird way. So there's this is a confusing mess about how people respond to when somebody says they've been raped. So you have two kinds of police officers. One that says, when a woman comes in, he's just going to believe it. There's other police officers who've had a few experiences with women who come in who claim they've been raped, and they're like, yeah, I'm not buying that one. One of my favorite stories on that is my own daughter, who worked with sex crimes. Went out to a home one day, and this woman came. They were called to this home, and the woman came out, and she was inside. So they went and knocked on the door. They went in, and she was like 7 months pregnant. She said, I was raped. And they're like, well, who raped you? She was my husband's friend. And they said, well, where is he? And she said, well, he's out outside. So go outside. The dude's sitting on the steps. Right? And they're like, hey, did you rape the woman inside? He goes, I didn't rape her. And they said, well, she says you did. He goes, no, I didn't rape her. Look, he takes out his phone, he clicks on it, and he goes, here. And he videotaped her. She didn't realize it from behind. And it was consensual. And they went, okay, no, nothing more to see here. Goodbye. So yes, if you've been through enough of that kind of stuff, you can be a little bit more not sure if that person's telling the truth. But you got these two different kinds of people working in police departments. One who, are very sympathetic toward a woman who has been raped, and others who are sympathetic toward women and men who have been raped, but a little skeptical sometimes, and have had this experience enough to say, let's see if there's truth to this. So anyway. All right, so what happened here? This is Daniel Jones, and he spent months in jail. He spent about 4 months in jail after he was falsely accused of rape. This was his partner, who became the ex-partner, Sarah Jane Parkinson, and she told multiple lies. Yes, she did. All right, so here's basically what happened. He was 31 years old. He spent 4.5 months in, I don't know if I can pronounce it, Goulburn prison. And then so this is when he spent there. Okay. In 2014, he spent it in 2014 after his then fiancee, Sarah Jane Parkinson, made 32 horrific allegations against him. 32. Now, I want to stop right here to point out something about Munchausens. Munchausens, one of the interesting things that psychopaths who exhibit Munchausens, which is not Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where they're hurting other people, children usually, but other people. It's themselves who've been hurt. And we see this in a few other cases, like Sherry Papini, for example. And these horrible things happened to Sherry Papini. And when these horrible things happen, they're not usually one simple horrible thing. They're usually kind of grandiose, because one of the signs of certain psychopaths is grandiose thinking. It's especially when it comes down to making claims that these things happen to you. Rape is a number one claim of people who are lying about something that happened to them. Another one is satanic rituals. You know how many people have called me up to tell me about how their parents had them hanging from trees when they were children and doing all these satanic rituals. Another one is I'm being stalked. Being stalked by people they don't even know who they're being stalked by. They're being followed in cars. They're being attacked for no reason. Their lies are usually many, not just one simple thing, but many things, because they love attention and they want to convince you. So they're going to keep adding and adding and adding and adding things so that they become more and more and more pitiful and sympathetic to the whomever they're telling, which could be family, it could be friends, it could be online. There's a lot of people online who do this, and they get lots of sympathy, and then they start the GoFundMe thing, and they get lots of money. So she's telling the police 32 different things. All right. What did she say? And she said, the other thing is overdoing it. Hand on my heart. It was Daniel. Well, this is because one point, she's not going to lie, see. I know it was Daniel. I recognized him. Well, that was when she was being raped. Well, I guess you would recognize him, but anyway. And then she says, okay, so what happened here? I'm not going to get to I'm going to show you the good detective in a minute. But he was 25 when he met her 20-year-old in Canberra. Okay, in a whirlwind romance, that's one of the mistakes. Again, stop the whirlwind romance stuff, because when you roll somebody into your life within a really short period of time and hardly knowing anything about them, you're setting yourself up. The young couple quickly made plans to marry, and Mr. Jones even built a house so they could live together. She was cute and innocent, a bit old-fashioned. She always wore nice dresses, all that kind of thing. Okay, let me show you one of the pictures, which I thought was very interesting. Let's see, where's that picture of her? Here we go. How old does she look here? She's like, somebody tell me, she looks what? She's childlike. She's childlike. Now, What would be, people in the chat room, 2? She looks 2, Anna says. Oh, Sarah's going for 12. Barbara says 15. All of these, however, are not how old she is. She's going for younger, 10. She looks pretty young in that. I mean, she really does look young. But why would she want to portray herself childlike? What would be the purpose? This is also a Lucy Leppi thing. Somebody wrote me very angrily about Lucy Leppi's notes, that she wrote all those crazy notes, that she said all these crazy things, and how she was guilty and she killed them all. And supposedly now oh my God, the therapist told her to write things and express herself, get things out of her brain when she writes this stuff. She's got the Lolita wannabe. Well, that could be true. She appears innocent. This is the number one issue. Innocent, emphasizing innocence. Yep. Childlike acting people, you do not expect them to be conniving and malicious. You tend to trust them because they're innocent and sweet. Lucy Leppi, when they went to her room, it was girly. It had lots of lots of pink, lots of things which were juvenile-ish for a girl her age, a woman her age. Not all of you say girl because, see, it's even influencing me. It's a woman her age. But she comes off very young acting. So a lot of people who believe Lucy Leppi is innocent think she is innocent because she acts so childish, you see. And this is something Munchausen's people tend to do. They tend to act childish. They tend to act naive. Because if you're really naive, you didn't realize things were happening. You didn't realize this person was doing this. You didn't realize, and so men are attracted sometimes to very childish, naive, young acting women who they feel needed by. It's a very good technique to get somebody. Although Lucy Leppi didn't seem to have much luck with that. But anyway, she did. She had that one down. Sherry Papini certainly had that one down. But that's, she had teddy bears everywhere. Arrested Development. It isn't, but that's what people want you to think, is it's Arrested Development. But a lot of times it's not. It's psychopathy. And it's a very female psychopathy where the manipulation comes from being able to get over on people because of the innocence. And so that works quite well. And it does sometimes fool men. It does. And they like to be the hero. They like to take care of somebody. They like to be the one who knows more. So it's a good technique to get dates and to get people interested. And a lot of professional women will say they have trouble getting a date because they don't act very innocent. They're very professional women. They have a lot of education. They're strong-minded. And the guys are like, never mind. They kind of run away. But this is one of those things where also because they exhibit that, it is hard for us to look at a person who looks, what's the word? I have to remember back. I did this documentary in a Florida prison. It was on Supermax, and I went there because the woman she'd been convicted of killing her stepson, drowning him in the backyard pool. And I remember coming in to talk to her because she was going to convince me she was innocent. And one of the things she did was this. Hi, no, I didn't do it. I love that little boy. She was just like that. And I oddly have this weird picture of her as I was leaving that room, because we were like in a big empty room at this table. And as I got up to leave, I looked over and she was this little sad thing. And I thought, she looked like a little child who had been abandoned. And oddly, that stuck in my head, although I thought she was guilty as hell. But still, the picture's in my head because she had that sweet look to her in spite of everything. So, yeah. Some of them put on that baby doll. She does. If you go to the channel, which one was it? I think I didn't put that. I'll link it below. There's a documentary done with her speaking, and she does a little girl voice just like this. She absolutely does do that. So is that her real voice or is that a fake voice? So just keep in mind that one of the reasons that women with Munchausens get sympathy is because of that behavior. And let me just show you something here. The mother of this poor guy, I'm going to go back to the story, but the mother of this poor guy who got completely screwed, she has a, where is it now? She has a, oh, here it is. She has a website, and it's it's called Mothers of Sons. And this is just from her Facebook page. You can sort of see what she's saying here. Canadian commenter Janice Fiamenga writes about how the Australian media treated some of our most shocking cases of homicide/suicide, showing endless sympathy for the female perpetrators, whilst calling the men evil and depraved. That is what happens. Let me show you two examples right here in the United States. Now, who can tell me who this guy is? Who's that guy? Who that guy? Who is that guy? Come on, somebody's got to know who that is. They're still seeking him out west in the United States. Killed his 3 daughters. That is correct. That is Decker. You got it. Who put up Decker? Caitlin got Decker. That is Travis Decker. Yep, Travis Decker. Okay, so he killed his 3 little daughters. He shouldn't have had visiting rights with the girls, but he did, and he tied their hands behind their backs with plastic bags over their head and killed them. And now he's been on the run for it's over a month now, maybe 2 months now. They can't find him. He's somewhere in the mountains or dead. We don't know which. Travis Decker. Nobody sympathizes with Travis Decker. All you hear is what a horrid human being this is. Terrible, terrible man. Then we go to her. What is her name? These are American cases, so if you're from Australia, you might not know. Who is this? Let's see who can come up with who this is. It is, come on, somebody. Massachusetts. Yes. Lindsay Clancy. Correct. Massachusetts. She killed her 3 little children, strangled them to death. She sent her husband out to get some dinner. She had planned exactly how long it would take him to get the dinner. I think he's picking up some medicine or something. How long it would take him to do those things. And while he was gone, she strangled all 3 children and then jumped out a window. And she's supposedly paralyzed, or at least partially paralyzed. And I'm not sure that, first of all, the window wasn't that high, as high as you would think. I don't know if she just miscalculated. And I don't think she was intending to kill herself. I think her whole thing was to look like she was trying to kill herself. And so she survived. But there's a ton of sympathy for Lindsay Clancy. Oh my God. By the way, she was a nurse, which is the #1 job of people who have Munchausen's especially Munchausen syndrome by proxy. That is the #1 job, nursing. Why? They're fascinated by it. But people are so sympathetic. Oh my God, she's had postpartum depression. She was this, she was that. The doctor gave her some wrong medicine. Everybody has an excuse for Lindsay Clancy for killing her children one by one, looking them in the face and strangling them. But Travis Decker, you're a piece of garbage. So there is a difference, which is concerning. I want to read you before I go on. Hold on a second. I'll take his glasses off. Can't see. I can't read with them on. That's not fun. This is an interesting statement by a doctor organization. What is Munchausen syndrome by proxy? Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a specific mental illness. It's not a mental illness, it's psychopathy. So they're wrong here, but most often linked to child abuse. It affects caregivers especially caregivers of children. It is also known as factitious disorder. That's the newest one that they changed it to, and I don't like it. Mothers of small children are most often affected by this condition. They're not affected. They're psychopaths who had children and then killed them. They're serial killers. Fathers or other caregivers can have it as well. Fathers rarely have it. Fathers can be psychopaths and kill kids. I'm not saying that. But the concept that getting attention through killing your kids is more of a female thing. Someone someone exhibiting Munchausen by proxy will act as though the person under their care is sick. They'll falsify medical information. They'll lie to medical professionals about the health condition, blah, blah, blah. But then they say, where was it? No, I can't find it. Where it is. Oh, here we go. This is what I really wanted to read. As adults, people with Munchausen syndrome by proxy are very interested in medicine. They often work in the medical field and can speak expertly about medical conditions. They are typically very cooperative and friendly with healthcare professionals. People with Munchausen by proxy appear to be completely devoted to the well-being of their child. Also, they work in nursing, in hospitals, nursing, whatever. They love nursing because that's the same kind of, I'm going to take care of children. I love children. I want to help people kind of thing. Lucy Leppi was absolutely focused on wanting to be a nurse and wanting to be with the smallest of babies. When they put her with the regular baby, she got bored. She's like, I don't want to work with them. I want the little preemies, you know. She was totally into this whole thing. I'm going to provide all this attention. So now, nursing is a number one choice. Lindsay Clancy was a nurse as well. So that's just something just to remember. It's when you talk about male serial killers, they're into power roles. They wish they could be police. They're into security guard and things like that because they want the uniform, you know. Females, not so much. They're more into using their techniques and they want attention. So that is just the way it is, and people need to start understanding that so they can stop letting them off the hook. So let's go back to our story here. All right. So what happened here? So they got this. They're together. Oh, it's so sweet. Shortly after moving in together, Mr. Jones' life began to fall apart at the hands of the woman he thought was the love of his life. Parkinson got a job. And I can't pronounce the name of the police station. Do I have a picture of the name? Because I forgot what it is. Sometimes people say, well, Pat, you should know how to pronounce things. Well, I should, but you know, because I can forget sometimes. Oh, I don't have a picture of it. Darn. Okay. Can somebody tell me who's in Australia right now? Can just tell me what the heck of the name of this police station is? Queanbeyan. Queanbeyan? I don't know. She went to a local police station and went to work there. I'm going to stick with that. I can't pronounce it. And I always forget. I can't hear your voices here, so you can't tell me how to pronounce it. So anyway, so she went there as a clerical assistant, began feeding her colleagues lies about her partner. The young woman this is interesting. They described her as clumsy. She would turn up to work with self-inflicted bruises and marks. Now, this was interesting. She claimed, I pronounced it correct, Queanbeyan. Okay. Well, thank you. I'll call it the police station. She showed up with bruises saying that he had beat her. And then she told the family when she was around them that she had some kind of condition which made her dizzy, so she would fall and stumble, and she was a clumsy girl. I am going to guarantee you, she caused the bruising herself on purpose. She probably purposely whacked her legs into things, whacked her arms, so she could make the accusations. That is my guess. I don't believe that she just falling all over the place. No. She's a young person. Even if you're a little dizzy, usually you right yourself by grabbing something. If you fall, I mean, really, how many bruises do you have that are noticeable to other human beings? Now, I bruise very easily. My whole family bruises easily. But the only time anybody ever questioned the bruises on my body was because I was taking martial arts class, and there's a thing called a makawari board. I think that's what it's called. It's been a long time. And what I was doing was I was hitting it. It was Vietnamese style. So I was hitting it with my arm as hard as I could. So I was hitting it this way, hitting it this way. Then I get my foot up and I'm hitting with my legs, and I bruise easily. So the next day I was going to the beach and I looked down, there were bruises on my arms, my legs. People are like, do you need some help, Pat? I'm like, no, my husband didn't beat me up. I swear to God, he didn't do it. but she was, I believe, self-inflicting, yes, these kind of things. So then she was telling the people at work, oh, he's doing these things to me. So they called him in to the police station and handed him an apprehensive violence order, an APO, and allegations he was assaulting Parkinson. Mr. Jones confronted Parkinson and believed her reassurances that her colleagues were being overprotective. See, they're very good at manipulation. And she's going to be Miss Innocence no matter what. Oh no, I didn't say that. But when you know how clumsy I am. When they saw these bruises, they assumed that you did something to me. And I told them, no, I didn't. With my little girly voice. So he believed her, and he stayed with her. Unfortunately, Mr. Jones' father said he also confronted Parkinson, and she told him that his allegations are false, and the couple were madly in love. So the father says, let's see what picture of Dad here. Oops. Hold on, sorry, I hit something wrong. Did I disappear? Oh, I'm still here. Okay. I'm not doing good with hitting things wrong. Where's Mom and Dad? I thought I had a picture of Mom and Dad. Where are they? Mom and Dad. I did have a picture of them. I've lost Mom and Dad. Huh. Okay. Well, anyway, I don't have it. I don't know where they went to. Oh, I got a little picture of them here. That's Mom being very sad, hugging Dad because her son is going to prison. Anyway, so he said he began to suspect the family had let a rat into the home, and he was right about that. The couple continued to live together, but Mr. Jones became increasingly concerned his partner was cheating on him with a policeman. Yes, she was cheating on him with a policeman. That was exactly what she was doing. And there's not much about this police guy. Except he ended up he lost his job and ended up with a little sentence himself. But this is Scott John White, who deserves to have his name out there. But again, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he was just so suckered by her, just the way he was, that maybe he just, he fell for it. He fell for everything she was saying. He started protecting her. And then that's where, who knows. But what she can cause a tremendous amount of damage to a lot of people's lives, not just to him, to his parents. They ended up getting divorced because of all the trauma that went on. They're just devastated over it. And his reputation was ruined, and God knows. And she's a piece of work, So he said, the affair came to light when Mr. Jones questioned Parkinson, and the relationship came to an end in November 2013. I was crushed. I just built a house. She moved in with me and everything was going well. I had a good career, my dream car I always wanted. Everything was going right. And in that instant, everything went to shit. Days after the breakup, Parkinson ramped up her allegations against Mr. Jones. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Why didn't she just walk away? She already had a new boyfriend. Why did she feel a need to continue with her allegations? Because she loves attention. She loves to be a victim. She wants to be the person everybody has sympathy and empathy for. And again, we go back to Letby. People say, why would she do that? Well, because every time she had to suffer through the crisis, because she was there to help and the thrill of being the one there, playing God, and then having people go, oh, you poor dear, the baby died, or, oh, you saved the baby. Yeah, it's a lot of attention. You work on that regular ward with those boring babies that are going to make it. Well, you really have to work hard to kill them because there's not a good reason for them all to die. You know what I mean? Not saying that Lucy Letby is guilty or innocent. I'm just saying that's the way a person who might be Munchausen or Proxy would think. All right. Days after the breakup, she ramped up her allegations, accusing him of urinating on her, locking her outside the house in the rain, and hitting her in the face with a plank of wood, and raping her. This is just one. So he became a monster in the eyes of So on Christmas Eve of 2013, he was finishing his shift as a prison officer when he was arrested in front of his colleagues. Oh, they're not? Okay. Oh, so he was arrested in front of his colleagues. He was a prison officer. He worked at one of these prisons, not this one that he ended up in, but another one. Um, and that's where he got the 32 charges relating to domestic violence. He was released on strict bail conditions. He had to go move back in with his parents. And but the whole thing is that this is, I say, it's crazy when you think about it. He moves back in with his parents, but where do you think she was living? That's what's this crackers about the whole thing. So she, on the other hand, was living in his house, the one that he had built. Gets worse. She brings in her boyfriend and his 3 children. He pays the mortgage. What the heck? How is this even happening? So then it gets worse again. But see, Munchausen's people, nothing is ever enough. It's a problem with desiring that massive amount of attention, which is what serial killers have the problem with. So you wake up one day as a serial killer, and you're already a psychopath then, and you're like, my life is crap, and nobody respects me, and I want power. I want to feel like God. And so I think I'll rape this girl on the bike path. And you do. And you go and you have this moment of, oh, that was great. So then you go home and you get a new job, some crappy job. You get a new job. Maybe you get a girlfriend. And it lasts for 6 months, and then she dumps you. You get fired. And you're like, you know what would make me feel better? Raping another woman and killing her. That would be just great. So he falls off the wagon, essentially, just like an alcoholic or drug addict. It's a person who's always seeking attention. The problem is they crave it, and it's never enough. Never enough. And that's like the malignant narcissism is like that too. It's never enough. So no matter what you do and say, no matter what you do for that person, you're always falling short, and you need to do more. Or they need, in case of a person who's a psychopath, they need a lot of attention to the point of ridiculousness. And our eyes are like, what the heck? You needed to go that far? Well, she did. So they arrived. So here she is in his house with her lover and the 3 kids that aren't his. On March 21st, 2014, they arrive at his house without warning, and he's arrested. Four cops show up and they arrest him. This time, she alleged her former partner had raped her. Yeah. Okay. So he had raped her, but used a condom. And the rape. That's why there would be no DNA evidence. But there was a condom packet outside by the trash. And so one of the questions that went to lover boyfriend guy cop was, did you ever use condoms? And he said no. And it turned out he was lying, because he did use condoms. He goes, well, I didn't think you meant condoms for anal sex. I'm like, really? What? Okay. We're not going to discuss that any deeper than he went. But anyway, we won't. But he got a little bit of time for basically lying. Anyway, so he goes to prison. He goes to jail for 4 months, and that's where he is. And meanwhile, the family, the parents are gone. They've gone nuts. They're like, what the heck is going on? So they're doing everything they can to try to protect themselves against her, because now she's going after them. Because now he's in jail. Again, let's say first time she says he bruised her. Then she says he assaulted her. Now they broke up. After they break up, he's raped her. Now that he's in jail, she goes after the parents. She claims she was driving down the road and she's forced off of the road with a guy with a knife. Well, luckily for this guy here and for his family, at least they got a decent detective on the case. And this is, let me find the picture of the detective, this wonderful woman. So anyway, this detective is Detective Sergeant Alexander from the ACT criminal unit. And she started being very suspicious of this woman. Well, she checked out the knife thing, and they got the knife. I'm not quite sure where the knife was when they got it. But anyway, it turned out that it matched the knives in her kitchen, in Sarah's kitchen, only the set of 6 only had 5. So she's making up a story that she's being run off the road, and then she's trying to say that the family's involved in doing this to her, you see. And remember, I say the stuff just gets, they're being chased by people, being stalked by people. That is a big thing. So now she starts claiming that the family, her house is getting broken into over and over and over again. She keeps calling the police. A little boy, somebody broke into my house again. She goes over and over and over and over again. And then she says it's his parents. They're the ones doing it, right? So one day she says that she believes the parents broke into her house and they stole her iPad. Well, the iPad ended up on the front lawn of his parents' house. So she's a little suspicious. They had put a GPS on good old Sarah's car, and they got the GPS going from that location to the parents' house. You see, and they have her going down the street, and they have her she threw her own iPad into the yard to blame it on them. It's like if they had stolen her iPad, would they throw it into the front yard? Kind of like the Karen Reed case, you kill somebody, don't throw them in your front yard. Anyway, I digress. So she's like, what the heck? So it turns out, I want to show you this picture. This picture his sister took with him with his little, I guess, nephew. There was a nephew. Anyway, and it happened to be the exact time frame that he supposedly was over raping Sarah. So he should never have been arrested to begin with, because this was proof that he wasn't nowhere near Sarah's house at the time. My God, that was lucky. Really super, super lucky. So she proved that he didn't do anything to her, and that Sarah was a big fat liar. So she noticed all of these things. She says, as far as I was concerned and what the evidence showed, Mr. Jones was responsible for any of it. It didn't happen. But, meanwhile, this poor guy was in a Supermax facility, and he was a prison guard. So not there, but, still not exactly where you want to be if you've been working for the prison system and not part of the inmate system. And so he went through all that. The family went through absolute hell. They spent a fortune trying to prove his innocence. They did the family. I mean, his parents just worked like crazy to save his life, and they finally did. Mr. Jones' mom, Michelle, described Detective Sergeant Alexander as a godsend, and Ian said his son would probably still be in jail without her, and that's probably true. Now, here's what gets interesting about Sarah. What about Sarah? So we look back on Sarah's previous history, and this is a problematic thing with Munchausen's people, in my opinion. The problem is that, have you ever heard this thing where, serial killers, a guy turns into a serial killer, and everybody says, oh, when we went to high school with him, he was a nice guy. We never noticed anything strange. Well, first of all, teenagers don't notice. A lot of times teenagers just don't notice things. Parents cover up things. So even if there were strange things and concerning things, maybe nobody's talking about. So a lot of times, like with Lucy Lepke, she's an only child of these parents who she claimed were suffocating. But other than that, nobody had anything that she did. She didn't kill pets. She didn't set fires, that kind of thing. So there weren't these. And a lot of times serial killers, the triad people talk about with serial killers, which is setting fires, wetting beds, and killing animals, don't appear with them. Now, they may not appear with them because they never did them. They may not appear because nobody caught them doing them, just never noticed it. Those are things they like doing because that's the way you can get power and control when you're a kid. Wetting the bed is the easiest one. But the second one is, setting a fire to your neighbor's shed, easy. Killing a neighborhood cat. There's always those meowing things running around, right? So nobody may know. And a lot of times people do not realize psychopathic behaviors, especially those who are not violent, outwardly violent anyway. And so that she was manipulative growing up. Did the family know that? Lucy Lepke, did they know that? All these people, Sherry Papini, did have evidence that she had made claims before. So there were things on Sherry Papini that came out, but sometimes things just don't come out, especially people, if it's a case that goes quickly into just it's done, or whether there's so much pressure for everybody to feel that person's innocent. A lot of things don't get really brought to light. So for her, though, however, She, um, she, on the other hand, accused her friend's father, who's a Turkish ambassador or something. She accused her friend's father of raping her when she was in high school. Never proven, but messed the guy's reputation up. And her poor friend had to live with people saying, your daddy's a rapist. So she'd been there before. She'd already said that. The friend, ex-friend, said her people at her school falsely thought her father was a rapist for 10 years. Mr. Lewis was never charged over the allegations as there was no case, but the family suffered emotional torment at the hands of Parkinson. I think she is a lying, vindictive, cancerous human who should not be around other people at all, said Mr. Jones. Now, she was perfectly willing to put him away in prison for 20 years. What did she get for a sentence? Because she's a woman. And it's only a claim. She claimed he did it, but she didn't actually do anything to him. She gets 3 years, and she can be out in 2. Maybe she's already out. When did this happen? I have to look. I forgot when it even happened. This case. Yeah, she should be out by now. I don't know where she is, but she is a real piece of work. That is true. Yeah. Oh, that's really nice. I'm glad you're here, J-Dog. You made it to a live. You've been watching it since I was a kid. You're not supposed to watch. Oh, maybe TV. Okay. I was going to say, you can't watch my YouTube if you're under 18 years old. That's not, even though I don't show crime scene photos and do all gory stuff and all that. Still not I'm for under 18, but I guess on television, I didn't say very much on television, so kids could watch that. That is for sure. So she got basically 2 years. And so here's the problem. How is a person who makes a claim that would put him in prison for that long, but she's probably wreaking havoc on another dude. Oh, she probably is. That is for sure. How many people remember this woman who has crazy eyes? So anybody should have been running away from her. Anyway, she does have crazy eyes. Oh my God. So anybody remember her? She was probably one person that brought sort of some of this stuff to light early on. She's like the early Sherry Papini. That is Jennifer Wilbanks. Does anybody know what her name was? Yeah, there you go. Runaway Bride. Clarissa's got it. The Runaway Bride. Yep. So the Runaway Bride story, to me, wasn't so much that she ran away. So supposedly, Jennifer Wilbanks, she's got this wedding planned, 28 members of the bridal party, 600 guests. But just before the April 2005 nuptials, she vanished without a trace, sparking a nationwide manhunt like Sherry Papini. Her distraught family made the rounds on morning news shows and cable networks, pleading for her return and saying she wasn't the type of person to run off. That's what the Papini family said. That's what Keith Papini said. Because people want to believe women wouldn't do these things. But they were wrong. Wilbanks, then 32, was found 3 days later in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She claimed she had been kidnapped and sexually assaulted by a Latino man and a Caucasian woman while she was out for a run. Well, at least it was just one Hispanic dude and not 2 Hispanic women. And while she was out for a run. Oh, that sounds familiar. Did Sherry Papini just borrow this whole story? I think she might have. She goes, well, work for Wilbanks, sort of. Anyway, so then they got all these headlines. Oh, my God. So then what happens is they figured out something was not right about this story. So she finally admitted she fled Georgia on a bus because of personal issues. And then she was criminally charged with lying to the police, eventually pleading guilty to a felony count of making a false statement. Does anybody remember what she got for making that false claim against? Well, she, in this particular case, like Sherry Papini, she didn't accuse her husband of doing something or a fiance like this situation. So she wasn't specifically putting somebody in prison. She's just garnering a lot of attention and wasting a tremendous amount of police police work. The media loves it. The media doesn't give a crap about liars. They love liars. Liars just make the media smile. Like, oh, we got a story, breaking news every single day. I think I was on the news talking about Jennifer Wilbanks. I'm sure I was. But the police, on the other hand, were wasting a frickload of time trying to track down, like Sherry Papini case, the amount of manpower and the amount of money spent because of this lie. That was terrible. And I remember the sheriff gave her a little teddy bear. That pissed me off. I was like, stop giving this freak a shit, dude. I thought it was after he found out she was a liar. So I was like, what? Anyway, she got 2 years of probation, 120 hours of community service. I always wonder what kind of community service you want her to be involved in. And man, that was so long ago, I can't even remember. It was a long time ago. It really was. Anyway, she goes on. Now you think, okay, maybe she just freaked out, and maybe she only deserves some, a little bit of time. She agreed to pay $13,000 to the city of Duluth, Georgia, to help pay for overtime costs, and she also had to pay the sheriff's office $2,500 for searching for her. That's pretty low. Okay, so meanwhile, she's 16 years later. She lives quietly in Gainesville, Georgia. She's a human resources director of a telecommunications staffing agency. And she got married in 2010, but they got divorced quietly later on. Now, before I go on to somebody else, I want to point out, where is it? Okay. Is this it? I want the part where, where is it? Right. So now after she gets this great deal, right, where she doesn't actually have to go to prison for lying to the police, which I believe anybody who lies to the police like this, they ought to have an automatic sentence of like at least a couple years. And I think if you say somebody raped you, you ought to be going to prison for a long time. Anyway, after this happened, aftermath. According to the BBC, Jennifer Wilbanks sold the media rights to her story. There's nothing like lying to the police to get a bunch of money. She sold her story to a New York City company for $500,000. Wilbanks did not offer to repay the whole cost of the search for her, which totaled $43,000. What a cheap little piece of. Anyway, and then this is so she's not a nice human being, and she's likely a psychopath. Now, I want to point out a couple more people, a couple more cases. This is not Munchausen syndrome by proxy, but there's a Munchausen syndrome cases. Now, Sherry Papini, I'm not going to go into the Sherry Papini case because most of us all know that she is a psychopath and Munchausen syndrome for sure. And possibly Munchausen syndrome by proxy, although she didn't harm her kids too badly, at least in the long run. Although she didn't have a problem with her kids thinking she was dead. So emotionally, she scarred the hell out of them. But this woman in the middle, her name is, what is her name? Probably nobody knows who she is. I never heard of her. She is, I gotta find her. Her name is, no, that's, wait a minute, hold on. I want to do this one first, if I can find a picture. Where'd she go? Hold on 1 second. Here. Okay, wait, let me see the picture of this. Where is the picture? I'm trying to find the picture so I got the right one here because I might have lost my picture. Hold on. Which one is which? I hate it when they don't put the pictures because now I can't remember which one is which. Oh, so that's so annoying. Because I found these two different stories about these two different women. All right, let me start with her because I can't find the other one. All right. This woman was sent to county jail for wrongly accusing a man of attempted rape and kidnapping in Middletown. A 20-year-old woman was sentenced Tuesday to 45 days to 23 months. Again, she's accused a man of raping and kidnapping her, and she gets 45 days. Her name is, oh, this is a different one. I'm lost here. This is Angela Borisova Oromova. Oh, okay. Anyway, she led to an innocent man being jailed for a month. So he's in jail for a month, but we find out she's a lying dog, and she's only going to get a month sentence or so. Okay. He sentenced, in addition to the county jail sentence, the judge gave the defendant 1 year of probation and ordered her to undergo a mental health evaluation. Have no contact with the victim or his family, and pay $3,600 in restitution to the victim. Yeah, that'll do it. So nice, so absolutely sweet. The guy that was accused said, "I'm incredibly grateful for the work that law enforcement did in this case to get down to what happened, but it can't change the fact that a man spent 31 days sleeping in a cell for a crime he didn't commit. Additionally, the victim's children had to watch their father be arrested, and the entire family was involved in trying to defend his innocence because of the defendant's lies." After the false accusations, the victim was charged with multiple felony offenses and remained incarcerated for 31 days until they concluded that she's a lying dog. He was freed. Let's see. There were multiple inconsistencies. She claimed that she had been attacked in Redner's parking lot, wherever, in Bucks County. After detectives confronted her with the findings of their investigation, she admitted she lied about the entire incident. And then she gets a slap on the wrist. Let me see if I can find. I think then the other one must be this one. I'm trying to. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Her name is. This is a Michigan woman accused of lying for years about cancer. Convicted Thursday in a separate case of falsely accusing two men of rape. So as I point out, a little bit is not enough. You got to have more and more and more. The jury took less than 30 minutes to convict 38-year-old Sarah, Y-L-E-N, how we pronounce that name, I'll call her another Sarah, after a 3-day trial in St. Clair County, 60 miles northeast of Detroit. She was charged with making up a story about two men attacking her in her Lexington home in 2012. She was also convicted of tampering with evidence after she used makeup to create what looked like bruises. Then let's see. Unfortunately, the police did not follow up on the leads and didn't go to her house to examine what really took place. Anyway, then she claimed that due to the, what's this the one, where is it? Due to the rape, she got, wait, let me go back here a second. So she received months of hospice care, and thousands of dollars from sympathetic supporters, but there's no evidence she had cancer. She claimed she was a patient at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America in Zion, Illinois, but they said she was never treated there. She forged documents on a fake letterhead. They didn't know what her motive was. They said money raised through community fundraisers helped her with rent and other expenses, but there was no evidence of extravagant living. No, because she's Munchausen syndrome. She likes to lie. She's a psychopath who loves to manipulate people and watch them jump through little hoops and praise her and feel sympathy for her. Oh, you poor dear. That's what she loves. The criminal cases have stunned people in eastern Michigan. She told police she'd been raped in broad daylight. Oh, wait a minute. There was another. She was a rape victim before. She was raped in broad daylight in a store parking lot. It's another place. Okay. There was no surveillance video. I think with her, there actually was a surveillance video, so it didn't work out for her. She claimed she got lucky for a little bit here. She said that James Grissom, an off-duty employee with a past sex-related conviction, was charged after she said her attacker had a skull tattoo, which he had. Despite insisting his innocence, Grissom was found guilty in 2003 and sentenced to at least 15 years in prison, an enhanced punishment because she said he gave her a sexually transmitted disease. So anyway, it didn't take long for her story to unravel. Authorities learned she claimed to have been kidnapped and raped while visiting her parents in Bakersfield, California, just months after the alleged parking lot attack back in Michigan. So she keeps getting raped a lot, Her father says, "My daughter likes to have a lot of attention." Daddy knew she was a mess. All right. After years of appeals, a judge in 2012 ruled the police report could have changed the outcome of Grissom's trial and ordered a new one for concocted stories. They dropped the case against him. after he spent a decade in prison. 10 years in prison for a rape that never occurred, because in this case, the police did a horrible job of investigating, in my opinion, and just believing her. What did she get? She got like, I just wanted to look at how much time she got too. So she got a 5-year sentence for putting him in prison for 10 years. It's just, unbelievable. But this is the kind of stuff that does happen over and over and over again. And so it's something to understand how these things actually work. So really, really sad. Now, that is Munchausen syndrome. I'm going to do a little bit on Munchausen syndrome by proxy and the issue of the medical system. And before I wrap this up tonight, and I will do, the full thing on that I'm going to do on the other video. But as far as what happens with doctors understanding Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a lot of times they do not understand that at all, or even Munchausen syndrome. First of all, doctors are busy, nurses are busy, people come in, and they're so used to dealing. So I've worked in hospitals for 13 years of my life as a medical sign language interpreter. I used to sit in the rooms with the patients, and I knew exactly what they were about, because I knew them, and I talked with them, and they could lie to the doctors, and I would just have to interpret it, and I couldn't tell the doctors that person lying, and I knew they were lying. But the doctors didn't know that because they hadn't met them before. They were rushing through there. They got these patients they got to take care of. They go in and say, "What's your problem?" Sometimes they do testing. Sometimes they don't do testing. They do, whatever they have to do, just to move the patient through. And so they don't have time to do long psychological studies on them and excess testing. And so a lot of times they don't recognize it. And some people say, well, if Lucy Leppy was really guilty, why did it go on for so long? Well, it's because nobody, first of all, wants to accuse a nurse of doing things in the hospital. Half the time they don't want to accuse the patient of lying to them, much less the nurse is lying about things. And that you're going to accuse a person that's doing what appears to be a good job, and you're going to accuse her of doing horrible things. So, and when you do that, if the hospital does that, you can get in serious trouble. This is one of the best examples of that. I'll start over here, and then I'll go over to one of the worst Munchausen syndrome by proxy people. Over here, we have this case, which I've talked about before, where, let me just find the basic on it. It's been a while. That's not it. Hold on. Oh, yeah. This is the Take Care of Maya case. Maya Kowalski. Now, what happened was, if people aren't familiar with this one, this is an American case. It's not Australian. So she went to Johns Hopkins Hospital, Johns Hopkins All Children Hospital, when she had this supposed flare-up of CRPS, known complex regional pain syndrome, which is a thing that exists. A disease she was diagnosed with by a doctor not affiliated with a hospital. And when she came in, her mother, this is Maya, this is her mother. Her mother told the staff she had been receiving ketamine to treat the pain, and even went under a ketamine coma in Mexico, which is not really legal in this country. While at the hospital, Beata Kowalski insisted she received the ketamine treatments, but the hospital staff did not agree. And Beata got really pissed off. She persisted. She should get ketamine. She should get ketamine. Now, doctors had never met this child before. They did not have any evidence of what she was supposedly suffering from, although she might have been suffering from it. They couldn't just give her ketamine. That's just ridiculous. You can't just give people stuff, in theory. I mean, although I've seen it done. You shouldn't give stuff without having proper knowledge of what they're treating for. So they didn't do it, and the mother got really bent out of shape and started going crazy on it. So they became concerned that the mother was Munchausen syndrome by proxy because of her behavior. So they did a thing which they wanted to have her not be near her daughter for a little bit, which they did while they investigated. And while she didn't have contact with her mother, she is in better shape than when her mother was around. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the whole complexity of this case with who was right and who was wrong. Eventually, they went to trial. They got a verdict of she committed suicide, supposedly because of whatever. And the hospital paid out $261 million for what was considered improper behavior by the hospital in separating mother and daughter, even if it's just for a few days. They shouldn't have done it. They should have. So the next mother that rolls in there with the kid who's got an issue, they're like, oh my God, do we accuse the mother of something? Because last time we had to pay $261 million. That's a lot of money to be. I'm not a defender of some of the stuff that goes on in hospitals. I avoid hospitals like the plague. I love working in them. I didn't want to go to them. Last time I had a doctor's appointment was 1990. So I'm not big on the medical system, but I understand the issue that when you make an accusation, or you're not even making the accusation, you're saying, look, we are concerned about this, and therefore we as just like the school has to be, if you think a kid's being sexually assaulted or beaten, the school, somebody has to do something about it. In the Lucy Leppi case, people say, why didn't the doctors do something about it sooner? Well, because they were afraid of this. If I start accusing our staff of killing kids, this is what's going to happen. So we're not sure, and you don't know if you're right or wrong too, because these things often are very, very vague kind of things. They're a little tricky. In the Lucy Leppi case, one of the problems which people don't seem to recognize is that tiny babies, even regular-sized babies, there are a number of SIDS cases, which are not SIDS. They were murder cases. Kids were smothered, but it's hard to detect in an infant. So that's a great way to get rid of a baby as an infant, because it's not that easy to detect. So sometimes, even when a child is murdered, it's hard to prove. And so therefore, the tendency is to go, well, since we're not absolutely sure, we're just going to go with the child just died, natural death, and they walk away from it. So in this particular case, they were suspicious of the mother demanding ketamine for a child, which they should have been suspicious of that. If I were in that hospital working, I would not have given that kid ketamine on the advice of the mother without having any kind of testing and knowledge of anything. That's insane. I don't care. Some outside doctor said she should take ketamine. Sorry, I'm not doing it just because somebody else said they should do it. So I don't really fault the hospital for a lot. They might have not handled it well, but I don't really fault the hospital. But they were faulted, and they got $261 million. Now I think they're appealing now, but that's why some of these things don't do that. Even if it's hard to say. Now here we go. Okay, yes, Lex. And I did talk about Kathleen Folbig from Sydney, Australia, was acquitted a couple of years ago. I'm acquitted on crackpot science, absolutely 100%. And I did talk about that before, and I did 3 shows on that, as a matter of fact. That would be these 3 shows. Hold on a second. These 3 shows. The first one I did 3 years ago. Did Kathleen Folbig kill her babies? And then when all this stuff came out on these gene things, her babies died because mice died. Mice died of some similar thing, but they aren't mice. The kids weren't mice. The genetic studies were nonsense, and I will say that I have no problem saying that. And so you can check out my stuff on that. I talked a little bit about that in the Lucy Leppi thing. The genetic stuff was just ridiculous. And these were experts. And I think there were 29 major experts. And then there were like 70 who signed some petition. And the governor just said, okay, let her go. And now she's got I think they just gave her $2 million. And as far as I'm concerned, the evidence proves she killed her kids. And that genetic stuff was nonsense. And the genetics, there can be genetic things that can kill your kid. It's true. But the defense teams will use this stuff in a way that is not proven that your kids died of this genetic thing. And the statistics, the way they did it in that case, the Folbig case, was like so ridiculous. It was like, from this disease, 1 out of 4 children would die of this over the age of 6. But 2 of her daughters died of it as infants. So instead of 1 out of 4 kids, it was 2 out of 2 kids and way too young. And then the other two boys who died supposedly had a different genetic thing that made 1 out of 2 mice die. But 2 out of 2 of her kids died, and they weren't mice. So it's like, what? So that's why when I did the Lucy Leppe thing, I said, you got to be careful about experts. They can be brought in to work with a team of defense people, and they will focus on things in such a way that they will say, this is what I think. My opinion is this killed them. Well, it is your opinion. It's not necessarily proof. So the prosecution a lot of times will say it's their opinion too. So then your question is it proof or isn't it proof? But you got to be very careful of these kind of things, because people will jump right away and say, oh my God, the expert said therefore. Well, Lucy Leppe people who are free Lucy Leppe are upset that I didn't believe 100% that the panel of experts on the defense side were necessarily correct. But they didn't have any problem with thinking the experts on the prosecution side weren't correct during the trial. So they're willing to believe one side totally and the other experts no. So, but this is a good example of why things go like this. Now, with this particular instance, in this case, what's interesting about it is this was also a genetic issue. And this is probably the most famous child Munchausen syndrome proxy case that existed. And this is Mary Beth Tinning. It's an old case, but she was, let's see, she was an American murderer and suspected serial killer. Well, if she was a murderer, she was a serial killer because it was all her kids. She was convicted. Oh, okay. She was convicted in the murder of her 9th child, although all the other ones died too. 4-month-old Tammy Lynn. She is suspected to be similarly involved in the previous deaths of her 8 children, which all took place in a span of 14 years. The woman's got really bad luck. The causes of death in Tinning's first 8 children were initially thought to be genetic. See, because they're like, the doctors are like, well, man, I don't know why those kids are dying. It must be something in their genes. Right? Except that the 6th child, Michael, was adopted and not a blood relation. And he died too. In 1981, authorities failed to open an investigation. See, people don't like to accuse women of doing those kind of things. They say she's probably very sweet, and I love my children. See, if a man was home alone with 8 dead children, believe me, he'd be hauled in. Let's see. Eventually, Schenectady County prosecutors had enough evidence, a laboratory test indicating death from asphyxia by suffocation. In this particular case, they were able to theoretically prove it, to charge Tinning and Tammy Lynn's death. She is convicted of 2nd-degree murder, which I'm pretty sure was 1st degree, because if she killed every one of the other ones on purpose, probably killed this one on purpose too. And sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. 20 years. I guess that's for one child. The other ones, again, we're not talking about those. An appeal to the New York Supreme Court argued that her confession was coerced and there was insufficient evidence to convict her. It was denied. It was unclear if she ever was diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Some people believe the pattern of behavior aligns perfectly. Well, yeah, it does. So she was incarcerated. She denied parole 6 times, but she was granted parole and she was released in 2018 on her 7th hearing. 2018. So when did she get? I guess she was in there for 20 years. I guess 20 years. All right. Now, the interesting thing, a couple interesting things about is she Munchausen's. Is she a psychopath? Guess what she got as a job? Somebody tell me, what kind of job was she interested in? What do you think her job was when she got out of high school? Do tell. I think she was a nurse. Wasn't she a nurse too? I think she's a nurse too. She was a nurse. She finally became a nursing assistant. They should nursing assistant. They should check on how many people died at those places. Anyway, Mary Beth met Joseph Tinning on a blind date. They married in 1965 and they had their first child, Barbara, and then Mary Beth's father died of a heart attack. Or did he? 1974, Joseph is admitted to the hospital with a near-fatal case of barbiturate poisoning. Later, he and Mary Beth acknowledged that when the incident occurred, their marriage was in heavy turmoil. This led to her placing barbiturate pills, which she took from a friend with an epileptic daughter, into Joseph's grape juice. He declined to press charges against her. By the way, he stood by her through the entire time she was in prison. Some people are just not bright. I tell you. And then all these children, yeah, they all died of all kinds of things here. Um, but they just you can read this on Wikipedia. Just all the different kids that died. Well, they adopted newborn. Let's see what happened. They adopted newborn. Um, oh, he fell down the stairs. Okay, he fell down the stairs and suffered a concussion. But when she took him to the doctor, he was already dead when she arrived. This one died of asphyxia. This one was see, this one supposedly choked on its own vomit and had a seizure. And sometimes they just didn't know why the child died. So then they've got a sobbing mother, and so you don't want to accuse her of those things. Just a mean thing to do. We may have a dolt involved. My favorite word, the husband, the dolt. Yeah, who as long as he's getting sex and food, he's like, well, if the kids die, the kids die. Now, if you're from the UK, you should know who she is. And this is, although it is very late for the UK people to be up, this is Beverly. I don't know how you pronounce her name either. Alette. I said Schenectady, right? I got lucky. I got lucky. It's like, so I'm not sure if it's Alette or Alette. So, an English serial killer, they at least call her a serial killer, who was convicted of murdering 4 infants and attempted to murder 3 others, causing grievous bodily harm to a further 6 at Grantham and another hospital in Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire. One of those. Guess what she was? A nurse, of course. So she's one of the nurse killers, okay? She committed the murders as a state-enrolled nurse on the hospital's children ward. Now, think about Lucy Lepke in this case. She administered large doses of insulin, which was the claim that that's 2 of the babies died with Lepke on the same thing, to at least 2 of her victims. And a large air bubble was found in the body of another, something else. I thought air was introduced by Lepke as well on one of the kids. And, a lot of times what will happen is people don't realize is that people who are psychopathic and Munchausen syndrome, Proxy, do pay attention to the news. And they kind of be fascinated. Now they don't necessarily find books in their houses that say exactly what they're going to do, but they see this stuff on the news. So I look at Sherry Papina, I'm like thinking, did she know about the runaway bride? And did Lucy Lepke, was she familiar with her? And thought, oh, this is the way you knock off some children. I don't know. But the police were unable to initially establish how all the attacks were carried out. See, here we go. It's the same problem. Because the problem is when you're where you're supposed to be, then well, she was there. Well, of course she's there. She's the nurse. She was there. Well, of course she's there. She's the mother. Of course she's there. So that's the problem. The person is supposed to be there. Now, what's always interesting is that they're the only person there. In other words, if all her children died of natural causes, why was the husband never the one with the child? Why was the child? The same thing was true with Folbig. Folbig was always alone with those kids. They were never at the pediatrician's office. They never died in the supermarket. They never died at a friend's house when they went out for the evening and left the baby with a friend. They always died with the mother. And so when you have a nurse who's supposed to be there, but if that nurse is the only one of the nurses on the shifts where the babies die, that's the only way you can pinpoint saying, okay, that's a little off. So anyway, what happened with her? Let's see what's interesting again is, because it's a female, because they often act very sweet. They do. That's one of the way they get away with these things. If they came off more harsh and scary, they probably wouldn't get away with this so much. She had supposedly attacked 13 children for fatally over a 59-day period. No, she was in a rush. It was only following the death of Becky Phillips that medical staff became suspicious of the number of cardiac arrests on the children's ward, and police were called in. So see, babies die. And so nobody pays attention. Babies die, babies die. It was found that she was the only nurse on duty for all the attacks on the children. See, that's the way you start saying statistically this is a little unlikely. And she had access to the drugs used. She was charged with 4 counts of murder. But one of these, I looked up this question about her. I asked just Google. I put, what did her coworkers think of her? Because with Lucy Letby, a lot of people like Lucy Letby. At least she was, again, the idea is to ingratiate yourself with whomever you're trying to know. Whoever you don't want to look suspicious to, you ingratiate yourself and you do all these nice things. Oh, she's the person that does this and does this. She helps me out all the time. And she's always it's part of the act. It says here, Beverly Elliott, I don't know how to pronounce it. Again, I should have looked that up before I started the show. Colleagues were initially surprised and couldn't believe she was capable of such terrible crimes. Some even came to her defense, as she was often the first to notice problems and worked hard to save her patients. Because then so it's a win-win for a person, for a nurse, a killer nurse. If the baby goes into distress and you save it, you're a hero. If the baby dies, everybody feels sorry for you because the baby died, and you're like, oh my God, it's the baby I was taking care of. So she was often first to notice problems and worked hard to save her patients. This initial perception likely stemmed from the insidious and manipulative nature of her actions, often appearing helpful and concerned to mask her intentions. Absolutely. So if you don't understand how Munchausen syndrome and Munchausen syndrome proxy work, that it is just a behavior of a psychopath. And women act differently than men. They have different methodologies than men. And because they do what is called softer crimes for the most part. That's why they're more likely to poison, suffocate. And their victims are likely smaller than they are, which is children and babies, or invalids, nursing home, midnight shift. If a person, your loved one, your grandmother is in there on the midnight shift, she dies. People say, well, she was 88. What'd you expect? People aren't overly suspicious until a whole bunch of people die, and then the numbers are not matching, even if they are elderly, even if they are likely to die. Suddenly, there's just so many of them dying. When that one nurse is always there, that's when suspicion arises. But until that point, for the most part, you don't think people around you are killing off little babies or killing off the elderly. You just, it's not the first thing that goes in your mind, especially when the person's smiling at you. They look sweet. You don't think, oh my God, you're a killer, right? You just killed that baby, right? So the chances are is you're going to block that out of your head. You're going to think you're crazy for thinking it. And one of the interesting things of the Letby case is how long the doctor started becoming creeped out by her and concerned about her. But they didn't do stuff right away because they're like, I'm probably exaggerating this. And it took a long time, but they finally said, look, something's just not right here. We're really concerned. And so that's why even here, she keeps bringing in babies and they're dying one after the other. She's bringing in dead children. And they're like, well, I don't want to accuse her. What if we can't really prove she did it. So that's the way it works. And it's sad because if the doctors had known about this and were more willing to take a chance early on, maybe there wouldn't be 9 dead children. But when you don't, if you can see how hard it is to even prove in court, and when you see how things go, like with the Lucy Letby case, the viciousness over she's guilty, she's innocent, she's guilty, she's innocent. If you were a doctor in that hospital, how quickly would you jump on a bandwagon to accuse anybody of anything? Because this is what happens. You end up in a lawsuit that costs your hospital more than $200 million. And maybe you lose your job over it. Maybe they get rid of you and not the person that you're accusing. So this happens all the time, especially with women, because the males, when they kill, for the most part, beat the children to death. For the most part, that's the way they do it. They don't smother them usually. They beat them to death because they get angry and frustrated, and they start just whacking at them. And when they come in and also oftentimes they've beaten them for many times. So when they finally do kill them, they look at the X-rays and like, good Lord, this kid has how many healed broken bones and cracked ribs, and and so there's enough evidence, and that the father or the stepfather, often the stepfather or the boyfriend, beat this child to death. But when the child just dies in the night of SIDS, hard to prove. And guess what? Children do die of SIDS. So when that woman came into my hospital all freaked out because her child wasn't responding, and she said, I went into the crib and he was lying there. Do I want to be the one to look and go, oh, but you killed him? I mean, it's tricky. It's very, 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 very tricky. So, well, Caitlin says it'd be hard to have people following a suspect nurse around with staffing issues. Well, I'll tell you what else also happens. If you're following her around, they were actually trying to do a thing where they were going to have her paired up with somebody. Well, that's not going to work. You know why that doesn't work? Because as soon as you pair that nurse up with somebody, nobody dies. You can't. It's like following a serial killer around. He's not going to kill as long as he knows he's being followed. So therefore, you can't do that. I mean, it's just unlikely. Oh, I hear the dogs are barking. Let me check some of your comments while the dogs are outside barking. So the Leppi's parents coddled and enabled her. I don't know. I mean, this is one of the things, going back and deciding what the parents did or didn't do. She's an only child. My granddaughter next door is an only child. Is she coddled and protected? Yes. Does that make her into a serial killer? No. So I don't know that her parents did anything wrong. And the most difficult thing with anybody who raises a child who is psychopathic, if she is that the nature versus nurture thing. Do they come into this life with some kind of brain issue that inside that psychopathy is already there? Or do they come in fine and the parents screw them up and everybody else screws them up? So is that what it is? Or is it a combination of both of those things? So that's an argument that goes on and on and on and on and on. So, no, I didn't discuss much of the Kowalski case. I didn't. You'd have to go watch my other video on the Kowalski case. I didn't mention much of that. I was simply talking about the issue of the hospital making a decision when they had suspicions about her mother and the ketamine issue, that they should separate them for a while, and because they were concerned that she was Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and now they had to pay out $200 million because she supposedly committed suicide because she was depressed and she had been separated from her daughter, which was a really weird. That really made no sense. It's like, so you're separated from your daughter for a little bit. So instead of being there when when you've solved the problem, you can be with your daughter again, and you find that your daughter can have you back. Instead, you're going to get rid of yourself so your daughter can't have you at all. So that sounds psychopathic to me. So it's that what she got? Oh, I did something on Woodward, I think. Yeah, I did, didn't I? I think so. I did something on her too. Yeah, amazing how many women who kill children do get off eventually. I mean, it's really surprising. And what's more amazing is how many people truly believe that they were these innocent, sweet, naive people have just people just wanted to do them in. I mean, I don't think anybody had any reason to want to accuse Lucy Leppi of doing things. I mean, to cover up for the hospital made no sense at all. Because usually what happens in these cases, the hospital, if it has some issues, they don't want to bring a serial killer nurse into it like they didn't. They allowed her to kill people. They just rather get rid of her, just have her move on. And they're not going to pick one person out just to pretend the hospital doesn't have other issues. And, there claims there were some issues with the hospital. There often are issues with hospitals. I say, I'm not standing up for hospital and some of the things, but it's a massive organization. You hire a massive amount of people. Things do go wrong. Some people aren't the best, Have you ever been to a doctor you thought was an idiot? Of course you have. You've been there, seen that. And, so it's like, I don't know. It's just, you've had teachers that were terrible. There's cops that aren't so good, but that doesn't mean all the rest of them are no good. So that's the problem with people, is that they want to take down an entire organization. You keep trying to do that, you don't have no organization left. Now, there's some organizations that need to be fixed, but that doesn't mean, so it's just that people get very, very emotional about this stuff, and But the concept that everybody's being railroaded on purpose, like they just picked out this scapegoat. Now, have there been scapegoats picked out? Yes, I just don't think it in this particular issue. Um, well, there are definitely male nurse killers, anesthesiologists, males. The anesthesiologist is like a popular job for serial killers. I guess it's just, you're always keeping them alive or not with the oxygen during surgery. So I always think if I got into surgery, I'm like, are you one of those guys? Those poor anesthesiologists who are perfectly nice, but you could just misadminister something. And then there are male nurses who also choose that profession for the fact that they will have power and control over those people who are completely, a lot of times, completely helpless. It's one of those scary things of life. Babies are the most helpless creatures in the world. And people who are under medication are laying there helpless in a facility, in a bed with a pile of strangers. And the elderly are definitely helpless in assisted living places and in nursing homes. They're very helpless. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in those places. Some are just wonderful places, and other places they get beat and killed. So because they're totally helpless. And the family is not there with them. If they're not there 24 hours a day in the room with them to prevent something from going wrong, then anything can happen. It can happen. It could be an orderly that comes in the room. It could be a person, giving medicine. It could be, there's so many people in the hospital working. You just never know where it could happen, when people are alone. And I always recommend never be alone in hospital. Always have somebody with you. Don't leave the room, So, be there because you're the protector for that person. And but it's it's a tough job if you have to go to work and the person's going to be in the hospital for like how many months a person going to be in the hospital, and you got to go to work. So yeah. Hi, Maria. Good morning. The infirm, the elderly, all that is there's a theory Lucy Lepio set up from the start to be oh good Lord. That's a dumb theory, and I'm against civilian jury system. But that's a silly, you know what I mean? These are the kind of, there's a lot of theories out there that just go cuckoo, and they're all over the internet. And I try to tell people, at least try to listen to, if you're going to watch stuff on the internet, especially YouTube, at least try to go with some people who are not playing that kind of, that just they're trying to get people to their channel and make a lot of money. And they'll run with all kinds of crazy theories and gossip and all that kind of stuff. And it's just try to find a few people on the internet if you're interested in understanding cases or whatever. At least try to find some people that have some level of logic and stick with them, and just don't click all over the internet. Well, listen to every cuckoo bird out there. Although I've been called that too, so. Oh my God. Yeah, it's terrifying. It is. I feel so bad for the parents supposed to trust nurses take care of the babies. And for the most part, they are trying to care for those babies. I mean, most people go into this profession do care about the babies. It's unfortunate that it does attract a few people that are psychopathic, who that's why they're choosing that profession. So in every profession, you've got whatever that profession has as a draw, shall we say. Like police work, obviously the power and control of having control over the citizens to be able to wear a uniform and carry a gun. So you're going to get people like my daughter, who is wonderful police officer and detective, been here 20 years and no complaints. And she follows the law and she cares about people. But that doesn't mean every single person ever worked on that police force, and even in her own, her own department. Not every one of them was the greatest, So you get those, and I think anybody's ever worked anywhere goes, yeah, and that person wouldn't want that doctor touching me, So yeah, it's just It is. It's called what? And that's why it's called. I think that's why it's called factitious disorder. It's just because the DSM-5 is what it's on now. They just like to change terms all the time. They get a kick out of that. A lot of times they, yeah, it's not nothing wrong with the name. I've been using Munchausen for so long, and I like it. I mean, it's named after Baron von Munchausen, who told wild stories. But you know, I don't know. I'm good with it. Like a lot of people don't. A lot of the psychopathy is something that's not popular in a term that's used much these days, because that seems too final. In other words, if you're a psychopath, you can't be fixed. No, getting therapy isn't going to do anything for you. The only thing therapy does for you is help you understand how to get over on more people, and how to play the therapist. And then the therapist gives you ideas and you pretend. And so that's psychopath. You can't fix a psychopath. You can fix other things, but not that. So they try not to use that word, because if you're in the mental health business, I mean, you make money off of trying to fix people, not by saying, forget it, go home. I can't help you, So they have all these other kinds of things, other terminologies, which are oftentimes just another version of psychopathy. But I'm not going to get into all of that right now. Let me see. Vicious disorder. Wait, this is interesting. Okay, critical thinking is vital. Yes, it is. The factitious disorder imposed on another is a better. Oh, that's an interesting way to put it. I was asked on a panel whether it's a mental disorder or a crime. I said yes. Yeah. The whole thing, syndrome, is a bad terminology. Munchausen syndrome is completely wrong, in my opinion. So I'll go with that. It's not a disorder either. It's just psychopathy. It's just a behavior of psychopaths. So it's really not a separate thing. It's a behavior. Just like all serial killers are psychopaths, but all psychopaths are not serial killers. So serial homicide is a behavior of psychopaths. Rape is a behavior of psychopaths. Ripping people off, massive fraud, behavior of psychopaths. You don't call it a fraud disorder, a rape disorder, a serial homicide disorder. Is it a syndrome? I mean, to me, they got to get rid of. I mean, I say Munchausen syndrome because it's there, but sometimes they just skip the syndrome part and just say Munchausen's. Maybe that's a better idea. Munchausen's by proxy, Munchausen's. Yeah, I should dump the syndrome too. I just have said it so long, but I never believed the syndrome part. So, I use the word psychopath a lot. I do. A VCR. What is that? Oh my God, a VCR. All those tapes. My sister was so kind. She took all my work when I was doing television. She videotaped. It was all videotape, and she put all those onto DVDs for me. And that's sweet. But now it would be so much easier. Just don't even have to use a DVD. So all those old things are gone. So the Adventures of Baron von Munchausen. Yes, it is. But that is very true. I like that. Imposed on another is more accurate. Describes what a person did to another person versus suffering from something they're stricken by. Very good. I like that. That is absolutely true. So, it's like there's a lot of ways that things are toned down, and I purposely think they're done so that either the defense attorney can get them off on a lighter charge, or that therapy can be enacted. Some belief that therapy will help, and so. But anyway. that's always a, wait a minute, what did you say here? In the new DM in the new DSM-V6, there will be a new section devoted solely to disorders caused by YouTube, and probably by Pat Brown too. Oh Lord. No, I'm with you on that activated thing. It is an issue that I'm also annoyed by a lot. And there's so many things that what I always talk about in this channel is how things really work. And the problem is people get very bent out of shape about things because they don't understand how things really work. Now, I'm not always saying that everything I say is right, or that every analysis I say somebody's guilty or innocent. That is my opinion. It could be incorrect. I mean, a lot of things, as far as proven go, things are proven in a court of law. Things are, depending on the court of law, whether that proven thing is actually proven. That's why people get all bent out of shape and say the person was railroaded and the person was, should get an appeal and a new trial and a different jury because that jury sucked. Now I want a new jury that maybe they'll get it right. I just always wonder, maybe they should everybody should go through 10 trials with 10 juries, or maybe there should be 10 juries. Just put the juries in different boxes. And there was that show, that was a British show, I believe, where they had the same trial played in front of them, and then they had the two juries that watch the trial and see whether both the juries come up with the same conclusion. And I think that's really interesting, actually, because if you're going to say the civilian jury system works, then you should be able to have more than one jury see whether they come up with the same conclusion. And if they all come up with different conclusions, well, then the heck, it's obviously not working. Then I'd like to see the same thing done with professional juries and see how that works out. But everything is very complicated, very, very complicated as to when anybody gives an opinion. And when you're on a jury, you're going to give an opinion, whether the person's guilty or not. It's still an opinion. You look at the evidence and you decide whether they're guilty or not. It's your opinion. Is it proven? Well, it depends what you think proof is. When I give an opinion, it's an opinion. It's my analysis. My analysis is an opinion. I work hard to base things on facts. I try to explain why I come to this conclusion. But in reality, it's an opinion. A lot of doctor stuff is an opinion. Sometimes it's called facts, but it's not. It's an opinion. So when you go to a doctor, this doctor says I think you got this disease. The other one says you got that disease. This one says you need this treatment. And even if you have the same disease, they tell you should try different treatments from different doctors. That's why they get second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion. So they all don't agree. Scientists never agree half the time. You get them fighting, or they all agree that it's a fact for 10 years, and then 10 years later they go, oh, never mind. It wasn't a fact. So the world is always a little bit, not exactly straightforward, and everything is not exactly perfect and clear, and not everything is fair. And all you can do is hope that nothing bad happens to you, or you don't get caught up in something that you didn't do, and that if you do something or you don't do something, you get the fairest group of people to determine what should happen to you. That's all you can hope. If you get sick and go to a doctor, you just hope like hell you get the best doctor. You go to school, you hope you learn something. You know what I mean? Some of these things are in your own. You have your own abilities. Like if you don't commit crimes, you're less likely to end up in a courtroom, being charged with something. You're less likely. Unless you're railroaded or some freak thing happens, you're probably not going to be in the courtroom. If you do things, you sell drugs, you get involved in drugs, you whatever bad thing you're getting involved with, well, that's why you might be in the courtroom. And if you go to school and the teachers aren't the best, well, maybe it's up to you to seek out literature that you can learn from, and learn as much as you can on your own then. And now there's so many ways to learn things on your own that you can always educate yourself. And so there's all these things you can do. If you're going, you have an illness, you educate yourself as much as you can on your own through every means possible, so you can understand what the doctors are saying. Kind of like if you were a jury that had any time to do anything, you would want to be able to understand everything each side of the doctors were saying. If you don't, when you're in the courtroom, you have very little time to think. And a lot of times it won't let you take notes either. So, my God, I mean, when I read the book that I was reading, I'll mention the book again because I think it's excellent. Unmasking Lucy Lepre. My God, that medical stuff is complicated and massive amount of medical stuff in there. and they were talking about how they were trying to understand it, how much work they put into in this book, the authors trying to understand the medical stuff so they could write about it, and how many people they had to go to learn. But if you're sitting in the courtroom, you don't have those options. And unfortunately, a lot of people watching stuff on television and on the internet, they don't really get the full picture either, because they're willing to believe that group or willing to believe that group, and they don't do enough of their own research. And that's why they think, oh, I know it's right. I know what's right. Well, maybe you don't. So it's complicated. And so we have to accept that it is a wee bit tricky, shall we say. So anyway, that is true. Medical science always evolves. Nature of science, it is. And that's a good point too. Life is a game of weighing testimonies. Excellent statement. Yeah. There is no way the Kowalski jury understood all the medical testimony. Probably not. Yeah. Oh, you just got an Audible version of the one I just, I don't know if I could listen to that on Audible, but wow. I'd say the medical stuff is really tough, but it's really, really well researched. I was really, really surprised. And, I'm pretty critical of books because a lot of them are garbage. But, some of them I've read and I'm real impressed by, even if I, may not even necessarily always agree with everything in the book or the conclusions. If it's well researched and well written, then it gives me something to think about. I thought that book was excellent. I do. Oh, good Lord, are they ever? I mean, the thing that what happens is your brain starts just, you just start going, yeah. To keep all that in your head, it's. And this is the funny joke I thought was that, I'm not in favor of civilian jury systems, and people are like, oh, they're the best, we should only have civilian jury systems, lay juries, yes. And then when something like Lucy Letby happens, they're like, that jury they're a bunch of bums, they were just 12 people with no medical knowledge, which is probably true. They weren't bums, but they're nice people. They have no medical knowledge of this stuff. They don't know anything about infant medical care. And the fact they have to sit through, I just feel sorry for juries. They have to sit through hours and hours of deadly boring testimony that they probably don't understand much of and probably zone out on. Even if they pretend to be awake, their brain is not actually intaking it, because you can only get so much in your brain before you just, without having a time down to really figure it out and understand it. I mean, that's why people go to medical school for years and years and years and years. But the jury, they don't even get a little handbook, they just go rolling right in there and try to figure out what doctor's telling the truth. It's just unbelievable. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, I think I'm going to stop there tonight. And I wish people were just a little bit more understanding that women do lie. Oh, well, the last thing I want to say on that is that the whole Me Too thing has been problematic in the sense that it has encouraged the belief in claims. A claim is not proof of something. A claim is a claim. And a lot of the Me Too thing has people, especially with famous people with money, people where certain parts of society have a grudge against. And sometimes they're not the most likable characters, and so it's easy to have a grudge against them or think or want to take them down. But a lot of the Me Too stuff has existed from claims that have come from years. Something happened 20 years ago. This person did this to me. No, not a shred of proof that happened outside of the claim, the story that they tell. And if they're good storytellers, and a lot of people just that they would not tell that story if it weren't true, and that is just not true. And so we have to stop just believing people just because it's a sad story. And that's how people, by the way, in relationships. Oh, I think also I forgot to mention this. Put her back up here again. She had claimed that she had been abused by boyfriends before she hooked up with him. And I think she even, and of course she had the rape thing too, but she'd been abused before. And this is another thing. Why would somebody tell me that unless it's true? So why would somebody get on a stand and say this famous person raped me when they didn't? And so it's hard to tell. We have we had trying to think of there's a whole bunch of them. But I'm trying to think of the ones that actually came out to be not true. The hockey. I'm trying to think of Duke lacrosse team. Duke lacrosse. She finally admitted she lied about the whole thing. Were the guys stupid? They were drinking and hired a prostitute. Yeah, it was what I call bad behavior. It wasn't crime, but they got accused of a crime. We've had certain actors being accused of rape, and the evidence is very weak. But people say, "Well, I think he did it." Do you have proof he did it? Well, I believe her. Why? I mean, she could have been true. But is it true? Is there any proof it's true? Just because you can tell a story and shed a tear doesn't mean it is absolutely true. And I will try to link below I know I did a part of video on it, but I also did a blog once. And the blog was where I talked about my time in Hollywood and how I was on a set, which was true. I was 19 and I did modeling. Well, I tried, and I didn't get involved in the casting couch, so I didn't get hardly any work. Not that I was talented. I was cute, but not necessarily talented. And I was on the set of Cheech and Chong, and I did a stand-in where the in bed with Chong, where the actress is getting her hair done, and so I had to lay with a cover over me. I was supposed to be a lump, essentially, under there, like I was her under the cover. And so they were filming whatever they were filming. And I told the story, a very sad story, about how when I was under that cover with Chong, he started touching me and I didn't know what to do because there were cameras rolling and I just froze and just let him touch me and with his hands and do things. And I was just, it was horrible. It's horrible. And I did, and then finally they said cut and you can get out from under the covers. I just threw the covers off and I just ran out of the room. And that's when I left Hollywood and never went back because of what Chong did to me. It was a complete lie. I mean, so I did this one thing on YouTube and everybody's like, oh, cut. And then when I wrote the blog and it was meant to make a point, I said, do you believe me or don't you believe me? My sister will back me up. And I got a call from one of the top lawyers in the United States who said he would represent me against Tommy Chong. I'm like, dude, it was an act. The blog was fake. And then I had to put up their big, huge, this is just, I had so, because I was like, I never thought anybody would buy it. But I guess I was a good fake. I knew how to act. Even in writing, I knew how to act. And people felt so bad for me. So many people felt really sorry for me. I'm like, oh my God, poor Tommy Chong. Hey, he didn't do anything to me. No, he never touched me. It was like, I was really shocked when I didn't know that I was going to get that response. Yeah, so I had to put that thing up there. This is not a true story, but I was just putting a hypothetical up and asking people, do you believe me or not? But they didn't know it was hypothetical. They believed me totally. It's like, including the big lawyer. I was like, wow. But, theoretically, I could have that lawyer go have sue Tommy Chong and take him to court. And then he would put out the feelers for any other women that were there. Anybody else has had any problems with Tommy Chong, and all these women would pop out of the woodwork saying, I too was, me too, he touched me too, and then then it looks horrible. All these women have been attacked by this man. And he's like, what the heck? I don't even know who these women are. And yes, I was in the bed with Tommy Chong, but he has no memory of me. I was the lump, So, but it's just a real sad thing. And it shouldn't, that a claim like that is not truth. It's not fact. It could be, I take it back. A claim can be true, but it can also be false. So unless you can prove it is an actual fact, this actually happened, you have some kind of proof that it happened, we have to be careful with what we believe. Just because a woman is sad looking and says that doesn't mean it's what she's saying is true. And she got people to believe her, as did many other women like her. And this poor guy ends up in jail for it and gets his life ruined. So that's why his mother started this thing. She said, we have sons too. So there's this whole thing like, the men don't matter anymore. It's only the women that matter. And, I have a daughter who I care about, and I have 2 sons I care about too. And I don't want a man to attack my daughter, sexually assault my daughter, but I don't want my 2 sons to be accused of rape when they didn't do it and have their lives ruined. So it's scary all the way around. That's my opinion. So anyway, that's it. I am actually leaving now. So anyway, thank you guys for being here in this open live. You've all been great. I think everybody's, as far as I can see, everybody had very good behavior, which is always nice. And so I will see you guys in the future. But join Patreon if you'd like to be at the regular lives. That would be, aren't you nice? Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate that, Planet Steel. Night, everybody. You'll have a good night. You're in Adelaide. All right. I'm glad you were here. That's why I did this at 8:00 at night, my time, because I'm like, if I do this the regular time at 3 p.m, you guys are all asleep. And I thought that would be rotten. I think I did one on Woodward, didn't I? One of the things that you have to do is I don't remember what I've done. I've done so many. I have 800 videos. So go to the search engine in YouTube and put in Profiler Pat Brown and then put in Louise Woodward and see if it shows up, because I don't remember. I know I talked about 2 different nanny issues. I don't know if it's on the same video or a separate video or during a hangout. Not sure. No. I'm glad. I always hope somebody learns something. That's my point of doing these shows. So that's what's important to me. That is true. And that is this is a great thing to point out. And some of the times in a show, I can't point out everything, and I wish I could. So it's unfortunate for all who have truly been victims. There will always be some that lie for money. Yes, because people who lie are hurting victims, real victims, because those victims then don't get believed and it makes it harder for them. So that's why I feel like anybody who lies and is proven to be a lie. I mean, sometimes you can't prove if somebody's lying or not. So you can't charge them with something. You just don't know if they're telling the truth. But somebody like this, she should have been in prison for 10 years. I just let her off so easily. What did she get? Oh, she got 14 months for ruining a family. 14 months. That's disgusting. Chong, really? He signed his shirt right on my boob. Well, he touched you more than he touched me. But you could always make a claim because right where he did it. Cheech and Chong were both very nice guys, by the way. This is a good. Danny says, I don't like that. Believe all victims. I agree. It's just a ridiculous thing to say. They're alleged victims, yes, with claims, correct. And then people assume the accused is guilty with little or no evidence. And see, that's it's. And the person they're claiming did this to them. The problem is if they can't prove they didn't do it. So it's like I'm trying to prove a negative. Like I went to his hotel room and he attacked me 20 years ago. Look, that didn't happen. Either she never went to my hotel room or she did go to my hotel room. We had sex, but I didn't rape her. How's he supposed to prove that? I mean, it gets very, very difficult. And some people think that because the defense attorney can pull in a whole bunch of people, then if a whole bunch of people say these things happen to them, then it must be true. And again, that is not necessarily true. So, yeah. Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Glad you were here. Good night, everyone. Good night, Clarissa. Good night, Caitlin. Good night, Barbara. Critical thinking. Thank you for your input on Munchausen's and possible new. We should just redo that whole thing. Yeah, we should. We should. Bye, Danny, Jennifer. Let's see who else is here. Lisa, Kung Fu, Clarissa, Lex. Thanks, Pat. See the regular chatters in the Hangout later this week. Absolutely. If you're not already a patron, become one. That does help. It does help me a lot because, the algorithm doesn't overly love me and I don't do gossip stuff. So the patrons really do help keep this channel supported. So I can keep doing this. So anyway, I'm glad you made it here too. Oh, let me see. Oh, okay. Oh, you found it. Oh, good. Lex. Dr. Grande said, Parkinson was a self-centered, impulsive, irresponsible, immature, manipulative, deceptive, craved admiration, was sensation seeking, had a sense of entitlement, and was exceedingly creepy. Dr. Grande is right on that one. His sense of humor, I do like a sense of humor, I really do. Thank you, Kelly and Clara. She used a hammer on herself. It's amazing what people will do to injure themselves too, to look like they were damaged. I mean, you wouldn't think somebody would take a hammer to themselves, would you? Or knife themselves? But they do. And that's what people don't understand. People actually do those things. Bye, Spike. You have to go to sleep. Yes, you do. Oh, Mac the cat. He came in, ate his food, and he's gone. I heard him roll in. So he's not going to be in my bedroom tonight. He ate next to the table here. So, oh, that's interesting. I don't believe Conor McGregor's accuser. I hate McGregor, but I don't believe her. And this is this is another just point before I go. Just because you don't have to like the person or dislike the person, especially sometimes some people are being accused of something. There's people who've been accused of things I would like to see them be put away, but because I can't stand them, like you're saying. But it doesn't mean I think that there was evidence to put them away. And I don't have to like or dislike a person who's accused of doing, like let's say, all of these cases, when a person is a defendant. Some seem like nice people, some don't seem like nice people, but that has nothing to do with what the evidence says. So, that's where I say people have to get the emotions out of it and pay attention to the evidence, and then, look for logic and just understand things aren't perfect in this world, and all this stuff isn't perfect. We just do our best sometimes. So anyway, I think we're going to go away now. Okay. Good night, everybody. See you soon. Again, subscribe to the channel. Bye.